like at Bruce's birthday party when Bob Dylan was there.
Really?
And I remember Bruce saying once, "You want to come over with me, Bob?" And I said, no.
Did you not want to?
No, I didn't want to.
Oh, no,
because
I
feel
would
like
have had to. Edward, how are you?
good. If I sound stuffy, I caught a cold on the plane, but
Oh, no.
I just sound a bit like George Harrison.
Well, listen, no, you're good. We've
I'm just
all
going to
got
do
that
George
here.
Harrison the whole time.
No, you're good. Well, it's a busy time for you. Congratulations
Thanks, yeah.
on the film, which I watched last night. It's right up my street because it's a biopic, which I find fascinating always. What sort of attracted you to the role, I guess, firstly?
That period of music and artists in New York, Dylan's arrival in New York, and this blitz of music that he made from 1962 to 65, and it was a big part of my young mythology, and I loved it. And when I moved to New York, it was kind of a narrative and a period that I was very immersed in. In a funny way, that almost gave me hesitation because I maybe held it a little too precious, you know.
Really?
But I felt that James Mangold, our director, I love the film he made about Johnny Cash, Walk the Line.
Wonderful.
It was great. It was a great film about an artist, and this one I felt he had a great idea about it, which was not to try to assess the whole life of a person, but really to look just at a cultural moment and to create a feeling of being immersed in it. And we talked about things like even like Peter Jackson's thing about the Beatles, Get Back, you know, where you sit inside it so long that you almost feel like you've been there.
Absolutely.
And I think he had this intent to try to create a feeling of just sitting inside the time when so many collisions of interesting people and the culture and the youth generation and the politics and this idea of a new form of music were creating optimism, you know, and a feeling of young people being able to change the world and all of it. And I liked that. I like the idea of a film that's not really based in plot, but more almost in human interaction and I think it's touching. It's like young people who don't really know Bob Dylan's music, frankly, let alone Pete Seeger or Joan Baez necessarily. I like that it seems to be generating a lot of emotion in people because of the depiction of young people with aspiration to do something, you know, to make their voices heard, and I think it's inspiring. It's inspiring in that sense.
It's an important film. It's culturally important, whether you like music or not, whether you know who Bob Dylan is or not. I've got two teenage boys who know who Bob Dylan is, and they don't necessarily know his music, but they've heard of Bob Dylan. You know, it's important. Did you know how important your character, Pete Seeger, was to Bob? How influential he was, really?
I knew that Dylan came to New York with this deep affection and reverence for the folk singers of the earlier generation, you know, Woody Guthrie, Pete Seeger, Cisco, and Lead Belly and people like that. He sang about it, like in the first original song he wrote. He references those people and stuff like that. And I knew that Pete Seeger had been for that generation, meaning Bob Dylan, Joan Baez, Peter, Paul, and Mary. That I knew he was kind of the Gandalf to them. He was the one who had kept the torch alive across to the 60s and was sort of the elder statesman, revered by all of them at that time. But I didn't know, there was lots I didn't know about the details of his relationship with Dylan. I didn't know a lot about, I definitely didn't know how difficult the 50s had been for him in terms of being blacklisted.
Yeah.
And kind of, and it I think if in the film knowing that Seeger's been convicted of, for refusing to name names and all these things, it adds a lot of stakes. You begin to understand in a deeper way why he was so exuberant about a young new talent picking up the baton and carrying their movement forward with such beautiful new songs, And I do think I think we capture it in the film, but it's not a stretch. Like, you can see pictures of Bob Dylan playing and Pete Seeger looking at him with this expression. There's no way, he's just so much joy and radiant exuberance that a new generation is picking up what he cared so much about. And I think that, that relationship is a poignant part of the story.
I mean, you're utterly brilliant as Pete Seeger. Did you feel, I guess, more pressure to do him justice, especially as he sadly isn't with us anymore? Did you feel that?
Yeah, yes. There's it's a tricky thing playing real people. Period.
Yeah.
It's especially tricky if you get this feeling that they've almost been sanctified, and Pete Seeger, in the most positive way, not in a it's very, very difficult to find anyone who has anything other than reverence for him. And so there's that. You certainly kind of feel that, but at the same time, he was an idiosyncratic person. He had a very unique way of speaking. He spoke with this great formalism, and he sounded like he was out of time. To me, he always sounded like he was from another time in some ways, and capturing the way that he wasn't a hipster like those younger kind of hippies and beatniks. He was
sort of proper gentleman.
He was,
he?
yeah. He had a gentility and a formality to him that makes him sort of feel timeless and those, now that is what starts to get really interesting, because obviously it's fun to try to find someone's vocal frequency, and it's fun to try to find their musical voice, and it's fun he was just a beanpole of a person with this very distinct posture, and even the way he looked on stage, and that's when you start to get into the stuff that's really fun about acting, and it is a little bit addictive, like the idea of sort of inhabiting someone else's form and their frequency, and it was really fun. So that's that and living within their music, working on their music is, I mean, there's no review, there's no award, there's nothing anyone could ever do that give you that's better than the experience of just getting to work on that music. It's so much. It's such joy.
Yeah, I guess that's why you're doing it.
Yeah,
that is you singing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, really, really incredible. So it's interesting. So let's just talk about Bob Dylan, Timothy. Juxtapose, it's interesting, the characters, how different they are. He was a quirky character, Bob, wasn't he? When you watch it, I think that's what struck me, the kind of enigmatic side, the mysterious side, hence the title.
But he also, whatever Dylan gave us that I deeply love in the music itself, in the songs itself, I think the other thing that he gave artists was the example of an artist who's very fierce in his defense of the magic of the work. When people would ask him, when he's 22 years old and the whole generation is wanting to anoint him as their representative and their voice, he rejected all of that. He rejected the ego of, and when people would ask him, what's the meaning? He would say, you figure out the meaning. I'm not going to talk about the meaning. And it's hard to overstate how rare that is for a young person to have the wisdom to say, it's more powerful if you figure it out for yourself. It's taken me years and years to realize that how difficult that is, because the matrix of commercial, they want you to, everybody wants you to talk about it. And in some sense, I think he was very fierce in his defense of the mystery, his own mystery, and the mystery within the music. And it's kind of wonderful. I think that Timothy, it's rare I say this, but I think it's a magnificent performance, and I don't think people should watch like behind the scenes stuff or
No.
I mean, he's always doing interviews, but it's just like, just go see it because it has that impact. He does something that's sort of almost impossible, which is he really inhabits this very iconic figure and makes him human, which I think is a great achievement, and I think it's really worth seeing.
No, it's brilliant. It really is. Timothy, equally brilliant.
Yeah,
I love the quote that your director James Mangold said that he got the chills when he heard him sing live. When you were recording, it was just like he just blew him away.
Yeah, it was better. I thought I became a kind of a voice in Timothy's ear saying, "Keep doing it. Keep doing it here."
Did you?
Well, he was so he.
Did
there was
you look
something
after him a little bit?
He dropped into a zone with the music and the messiness and the improvisational quality of what he was doing when he was doing it live. It was just better. It was clear that it just had an edge to it that made it feel like Dylan's sort of weird live presence.
Absolutely agree. And just finally, do we know what Bob thinks of the film?
I wouldn't. I've had this. No, none of us. Jim's met him. Neither Timothy or I have met him. And I've actually been I've been friends with Bruce Springsteen for a long time. Not to drop a name, but
love Bruce.
But in a funny way, Bruce to me is more like Pete Seeger. He even did a whole record of Pete Seeger's songs called the Seager Sessions. And Bruce has always sung about working people and and their struggles and been more overtly political, kind of like Billy Bragg in Britain. I always think Billy Bragg, who I'm a huge fan of, is the one who took up the baton of Pete Seeger in England, kind of punk, folk, political. Brilliant. But I've been around Bruce, like at Bruce's birthday party when Bob Dylan was there.
Really?
And I remember Bruce saying once, "You want to come over with me, Bob?" And I no.
Did you not want to?
No, I didn't want to.
Because
I feel like there's certain people you meet and you like. I worked with Robert De Niro, and I always revered him, and I'm glad I know him. But Dylan, I can't explain it. I just like there's not that many people who are mystics, who are. I kind of want to I want the mystery. I don't really want whoever he is. I don't really want to know him. I just want the music to remain mysterious.
But that's what makes him so popular. He is huge here in the UK. I mean, he really is. I mean,
even though you're the ones that booed him.
Well, yeah, but he's still huge. We love him. We love him.
They're the ones.
We want to know more about it. No,
there's a thing in the film where the person yells "traitor," and he says, I don't. That actually happened in Manchester.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Yeah. Well, Gold Radio love Bob Dylan. Believe me, we absolutely love him. The film is fantastic.
Thank you.
Congratulations, and can't wait for more people to see it. Thank you, Edward.
Thanks so much. It was fun.
Gold Radio.